Planetune sky lines, sky grid, sky panels, and trails and rotation through the surface and transitions. It's amazing how we see ourselves in clocking lines. 4 channels of operation screens. Look at that in platform communication. Look at that in platform communications, right? So we all have to understand how it goes like this. It just constantly spins and spins and spins and spins and spins. Now, the more we understand that, the more we understand the clockings of grounds through our satellites, okay, through our communication screen lines, adaptations. Everything I say is a central communication setting. It's no longer a time reactor. It's a core lines of traction. So everything I say is constantly going fast and fast and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And when it comes to a certain point, everything is now in slow motion. Slow motion. So when you come into that level, there's nothing to perceive through consciousness. There's nothing to tether. There's nothing to do. It's just you dealing with you. Even that doesn't exist because you're not bringing anything of tether. You're not bringing anything of balance. You're not bringing anything in setting. You're not bringing anything of center operation of you. So once you understand that, you have to understand the grounds of clocking, the powers of clocking, the atmospheres of clocking. 4 settings of travel. So I position you in the center. Okay, so it's very simple. You tether here, tether here, tether here, tether here. Okay, you just look at this, you tether here, right? So nothing ever leaves the center. It doesn't matter how fast you're going, nothing leaves the center. But what you have to understand is that you're changing time. Okay, you're changing time. Okay, you're changing time, and you're changing time through clocking. Okay, that's all it is. Changing time through clockings. See? Powerful stuff. Then you come into this in track locations, all through operation. All right, so you got clockings of grounds. Now you have to have the earth. This is your earth. It wasn't, it disappeared. There's your earth, all right? Okay. Your central is here. You're in the center, okay, which is your pyramid. Now you're above the system of triangulation, right? You're in the center. So all you're doing is coming into expansion of your system location of travel, indirect signals and modification, ground lines, and configuration of face recognition. There's your face. There's your face. So, coming into that lines, it's very powerful what we've done in symbolism, and lines, of course, centers, lines of travel, but I really, really want you to pay attention to this in travel communications. Your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions. See how it goes in the same direction? Right? And it doesn't matter how you look at it. Look at that. Different formula, different equation, but it's still going in the same direction. It's still going in the same direction. It doesn't matter how you look at it, a 4-line, a 6-line, or 8 lines of angle. It's always going in the same direction, right? When it goes out, it goes in its own direction. And it's expanding. Docking here, docking here, docking here, right? So it does whatever it wants. It's on its own system, all right, until you bring it into consciousness. And when you bring it into consciousness, you're bringing it in center now, right? So you're controlling everything that you see now. You're controlling everything that you see now. You're controlling everything you see, right? Now, again, if you take yourself out of center, and we've done this before, if you take you out of center, now you connect to what's in its consciousness of its awareness. You're not in control. Now it's taking its own system, right? These are not my fingers now, okay? This is all levels of intelligence in its settings, doing itself. Okay, I'm not doing it, it's the fingers that's doing it. Because I took myself out of center, but I'm still there. But as soon as I bring my center back in, I'm back with my fingers now in track location. Now it's me in direct signals in modification. Okay? See, look at that in track location. Intelligence, see? There's the intelligence. All right, guys. So, it's just basically understanding how to, clock your systems in a foundation grounds, know exactly what you're doing through your atmospheres, your highways, your modems, your satellites, and your towers, right? In that position locations, get you ready and set. Okay, so I'm in the center position here. I brought myself in the center, so now I have to perceive consciousness. If I don't perceive consciousness, I'm in cloak and dagger. I'm not there. I'm erased, but I'm still there, right? So in that position locations, nothing can see me and travel. Nothing can see me and travel. Nothing can see me and travel, right? Until I bring it in. And I keep doing this to you guys because you're adding emotion if you bring yourself in attractions. Now you're there, but your thoughts are here, your actions are here, and your emotions are there. That's not good. So what happens, all this takes over your system and travel. Okay? Take your position, location, setting, set up a solar dome, line course, centers, lines of travels into its own earth and track locations. That's right, guys. All levels of consciousness has to have its own earth because it's in your system and travel and track locations. All right? And once you understand that, this is where you come into in position. Okay? Its own planetary surface and line position of civility and rotation system of its dimensional setting. Okay? So now you're here on their planet and track location. All right? And here's all the intelligence around your system. Okay? Trying to figure out, hey, what's going on? What are you doing here? All right? You're in a different time, different measure, different scale, but you're not in the same clocking system of travel. Okay? So you're dealing with them now, right? Because you're in a different time. Because you put yourself in emotion lines, attractions, and direct signal. Okay? Out through equation and set position, location, and calculation setting. All right, guys? All right. So getting your ground lines, the cores, assist lines, calculations, ground, center lines of 1, set position lines of 2 over 3. Okay? Core lines of 3, lines of 1 indicate system lines of 4 over setting. Process indication, pi generation lines, and line direct signals of modification. Ground course centers, arrow indicates lines of flux over north, line position over east, and line position over west and travel. Okay? XT1000 comes here, XT1000 comes here, and platforms of 3 tractions and direct signals, right? Process lines, center lines of 1, center lines of 2, and center lines of 3 and track calculations. Now, directing communication grounds, look what you have in set position. See? Another XT1000 travel. Another direct signals and teleportation system and travel communications. So we all have to understand how to get into the center operation of our system all through satellites and traction. I did this all through activation lines in the XT1000 setting. So it's amazing what you're doing in the mind lines of conceptual location of travel. See? So it doesn't matter what you do in position location, but you have to stand the earth, the center, and your space. All right? Set position, set position. Okay? Set position, and tractions. Okay? Portal here, portal here. Okay? Change it. Now you get grounds, powers, and atmospheres. All right, so flux overlying clocking system lines of travel into modification system all through calculus in a continuous force that just keeps existing in position. Circulation, rotations, and all loads of existing lines of correlation system all through travel in set position in the same direction and set position. Same direction. Same direction, right? There's your space. There's you in the center, right? So you're always going to be in position of center operation, right? See? Now, to take that out through equation, you can change the color. You can change the platforms. You can change the center, right? Because you're already in position of your thoughts and your actions already going forward and travel. Very powerful set position location to a system, right? Okay, one equation sets lines communications to another equation, right? But you're still dealing with the same teleportation vessel and track locations. Okay, same vessel until I change it. And the center operations surface interactions. Changing it, guys. Changing it again. See? Changing it again. And set position. There you go. Okay. It's going too fast. And here's your lines, this green lines. Okay? Okay. So that's what it is. That's all it is in line position. Okay? So know exactly how to do your system and lines of travel and how to get inline screen adaptations in your clocking calculation, your foundation grounds. Knowing exactly how to get into the space now. Now you guys have your test on Friday and modifications and settings. Now your clocking system, I want you to get in this positions. All right, this is you expanding out. Okay, this is you expanding out. Okay, clocking here, clocking here, clocking here, clocking here, clocking here, clocking here. All right, clocking here, clocking here, clocking here, clocking here, and clocking here. It's a lot of direction, isn't it? Right? Different time measure, different scale, different balance, but in the center operation cycle. Sets position, location, grounds into lines of laser. You know, go through grounds and set position, location to a system all through travel and direction. Okay. Now, when you basically go into this position, you got your Schumann resonance. Okay. So you have to understand how to see it in a 4-line angle, not just see it in a 1-graph interference. You have to see it in a 4-line angle. Okay. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, right? So that's 3 over lines of 3. That's the position of 6. All right. So it's set calculation lines of 6 settings in position of center, right? Now, you can change core lines of tractions and direct signals in the modification grounds. Sets lines in line communication system all through sonar. Sonar comes in and line screen adaptation to pi in track location. Okay. Process in position location to a setting. Look at that. You can't see it. It's too fast. There it is. Nope. Let's try again. Are we good? Yes, we are. There it is. All right. Then you see it in the high surface and track location to a system, all through ground lines of surface interaction. Okay. It's amazing how we see it at line communication setting of grounds interaction. Okay. Okay, so symbolism lines of tractions over cross lines in 3 track locations. Okay, directing lines of 4 settings in position of 5 over 6 locations. Okay, now we change the atmosphere lines. So what I'm doing, guys, is I'm constantly changing the clocking. Every second, every minute, every hour, okay? So you're constantly doing that in the center, right? So you're going from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to lines of symbol lines of track interference line, direct signals, computer operations, set position locations, back attraction. That's all it is. You're just expanding around your clocking lines, this calculation setting to Schumann resonance and track location. Okay? Now, in that lines of screen lines, remember, everything that you do, X3000s comes in. They have to, because they have to know exactly what you're doing. You have to know what you're doing. So platforms of A and 3 lines of signals. Then we go into platforms of C and D lines of E factors over signal. Okay? Processing communication system, all through tractions in your settings of your satellite. Okay? There it is. In lines of communication system, your satellite and track location. All right, guys. So you simulate the lines of 2 tractions and 3 lines of flux over a screen into solar panels into another realm of communication system as space lines anomaly. Center communication setting and high track calculations. Now, ground lines of core centers, line communication setting, what's above and what's below, and travel communication. Okay? So again, you're constantly changing the clocking system, right? You're constantly changing the clocking system, right? So you can stay in measure, you can stay in scale, you can stay in the balance and set position lines of travel, right? But you have to understand how to use your higher self through Schumann resonance now. Schumann resonance, right there. Okay, ground centers, cross-line communication, right? Now, let's do this on a second angle, right? Let's do this on a third angle. Let's do this in positions to a 4th angle in communication. All right. Solar sail and direct signals and modification grounds. So I'm constantly changing the clocking system of different coloration lines of patterns. So it's constantly in a continuous flow that just keeps flowing in its existing of its flow and mechanism. All right. Change it again. There it is in travel. Okay. So I'm constantly creating different formulas of clocking. Clocking centers equals lines of L, triangulation, and positions, all levels of classification. All right. Communication grounds equals lines of course centers, levels and 2 platforms of communication setting, triangulation 1, triangulation 3. Set lines and direct signals into correlation lines of panels and Fibonacci lines of screen. Change communication line, direct signals, and modification system. Okay. Center core, 1, 2 lines, electrical line of fencing and travel communications. All right. All right, so we have primer circuits and center core system and lines of travel that opens all platforms of communication system of the calculations and direction. Oh, look at that, disappeared. Too fast. Let's go again. Platforms of grounds and earth line rotation. All right, so this is what it looks like in travel communication. Disappeared again. See, you're not ready to see it. It's going too fast, see? You've got to get it balanced with your system. And then you spread yourself out and travel in set position, see? Look how powerful that is. See, you set yourself out. You tether your communication setting to your clocking systems all through travel. Indirect signals and modification. It disappeared again. It's not ready to connect with you guys because the energy is too high. There you go. All right. XC1000 comes out, sets lines into data ports and screen, directing in position of tether and 3 lines of communication system and 3 portals of communication lines of setting. Okay. Docking system lines of 1, docking system lines of 2, and docking system lines of 3 in traction. Okay. This is what we have in line screen adaptations of flux and screen adaptation lines of force and travel. Okay. Wind patterns, directing lines of I course, directing line position of all levels. Signify in a 40 line course centers of sonar and track communication. So guys, all it is schematics in travel communications, all right? We just have to understand how constantly everything travels on a 4-line signal. Okay, everything, basically, if you spin it really, really fast, it's changing all configuration, modification, your settings of your face, like this, right? I want you to truly understand, right? The measure, the scale, and the balance, right? 1 plus 1, okay, never equals 1, okay? Because you have to understand what governs the 1 is 2 platforms. What governs the 2 is 4 platforms, okay? What governs the plus is position of 2 over 4 over 6 and position of center operation. And what do you have in tractions? Your pyramid of activation of face recognition. See, it's always in the center of everything that I do. Right? So it doesn't matter how you look at it, it's always in the center of operation. Okay? So you're just expanding your system. That's all it is. Look at this. Look how powerful that is. Right? What's this? Look at this. Another teleportation vessel. Look at that. Vessel to vessel to vessel. And then I change it. See? It's the same vessel, but different time and measure, different scale. Right? Let's get into the grounds. Whoa. Face is still there. Right? Until I change the face of directions. All right. Now I got to change the clocking system. See? Clocking system has to change. Changing in seconds, minutes, and hours in screen adaptation with settings. Your travel, right? Then you come into modification of this in set position of center operations. All right? It's amazing how you come into travel and track location system and calculation. All right? Then you clock your systems of grounds in set position of platforms. Look at that in travel communication. Then you get in ground lines and high center interference, indirect signals, direct and redirect in line communication system all through platform of communication. All right. Then you come into this lines of calculation setting, ground lines of surface and track location. All right. So that's what you guys have to understand. You guys are standing in the center with 4 clocking systems. All right. I did this in Space Discoveries in set position. Okay, that's how it's set up. All right. So you got a Fibonacci here. You got a Fibonacci here. You got a Fibonacci here. You have a Fibonacci here. So you need a positive and negative, right? Positive here, negative here. Okay. Positive here, negative here. There's the balance. All right. Clocking system. Okay. Now, understanding platforms, you understand your platform setting, right? That center lines is portal in communication setting that puts all calculation in your solar plexus and travel. Then you go into your platforms of communications in 4 settings, right? Then you travel out into another dimensions of space and time, into another portal communication system and travel. Okay? So, once you get into that, you tether each line in direct signals that modify the system through your clockings of grounds, powers, and atmospheres into your highways and tractions. You communicate your system all through the earth line and track location setting, right? But if you do this, look what you have in line communications, different teleportation. You do this, what do you have in track locations? Different teleportation, right? So always see it on a 4 angle, right? Through your north, your east, your west, and your south. Indicate setting of center, process, and a computer line. Now we got in position location with systems. I want you guys to understand how to do your clockings and foundation lines of screen. 3 core centers of pi, 1/3 line of pi, set lines of 2/3 lines of pi, process lines of center core system of half lines of pi, process communication over cross line signals lines of pi, direct modification 1 circle 1 rotation lines communication lines of pi, process indication high center interference into position lines of docking 1, docking 2, docking 3, docking 4, docking 5, and docking 6. 6 docking systems lines of travel, platforms 1, 2, and setting, process lines of 3 and track location, process lines of 4 lines of communication setting, center operation as center communication. Okay? Now we change the time sequence, change the time lines of measure and scale. Process calculation setting, center communication setting to your compass and set position. Lines of travel. Sets calculation setting, again, lines of travel. Okay? Sets this way and sets this way in clocking system of face recognition of time sequence. There's my face. Okay? So, to bring in a new face, it rotates the system and processes its communication setting of its webbing screen lines, adaptation lines of force recognition. Okay, it comes in signal. Then it modifies the ground lines, of course, send lines of communication and setting. Look at that. Took it out of the equation, we'll go through this system and locations. Directing in modification lines of 45, set position lines of 45, set lines of 2 platforms of 3 lines of 5, sets communication lines to 1 center, 1 surface, and 1 track position location, 1 setting. Okay, look at that. Went too fast. There it is in tractions. Okay. Now we do a symbolism lines of high center interference, a phase direction of time sequence. Process calculation high centers comes to the planets. Planet here, and routes the routers and the lines of 3 planets and 3 tractions. 3 planets, right? Now, process inline rotation and surface and track location setting of platforms. Where you are in set position of center operation cycle. Sets communication lines of grounds in set position all levels. Panel lines of 1, panel lines of 2, panel lines of 4, and line rotation surface and track location system all through calculation. Look how powerful that is. Now if I change the time sequence, look at this in tractions and direct signals. Okay? It's amazing when you start recognizing everything in center communication view. Your clocking systems of grounds, your clocking systems of centers, and your clocking systems of balance, and your clocking systems into higher levels of dimensional lines of space and track location. Very complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun of center operation of you and track location. See, you're inside. See? That's you inside, right there. Sitting in the pod. See it? So you're monitoring your systems, and it's basically understanding what you're doing through your travel lines. It knows exactly where you are every second, every minute, every hour, every day. Now let's get into tether lines of screen lines of parallels. Parallel lines, of course, centers, line conditions of paradoxal. This is a parallel. Okay? This is a paradoxal. See the difference? Tweaked in wires and core line settings. Intersections lines of 3 cycles. Core lines in 1 system, 1 traction, 3 lines of core centers, and 5 position. Now, process lines of indication system is coils. Sets calculation setting to wires of indication system. Paradoxal screen adaptation. Your DNA. Process lines of grounds, process lines of center, process lines of surface, and set position. Now we change the course centers. What do we have in track location? What do we have in track location now? All right. Different lines of panels, 3 lines of signals, process lines of 3 track locations. Okay. Then what do we have in that position? We bring it up, lines of screen adaptation. Right. Platforms of data, data process line signals, process lines of signal, line rotation, surface interaction. Then we have ground lines of settings, process lines of platforms in communication system all through travel. Okay. Then we have 3 course, indirect lines and modification lines in a teleportation vessel that changes course centers lines of time. Change it up in signals, there's the teleportation vessel that you're in position, location, and setting. So it's very powerful how you communicate the ground lines, the surface, and platform communication system. There's Asgard in travel. Asgard in travel. All right. So everything I do is constantly changing time. You guys are in memory of time. You have to come out of memory of time and stay in the now of nothing that shows you the mass of everything, all right, and set position your clocking systems. If you're in 2025, okay, and you want to go to 2040 and set position, right? So clock in here, setting lines of 4 clocking systems and data, okay? 4 clocking settings and box frame. Box frame, triangulation frame, right? So that's a female cycle of 3 settings. Female, okay? Female lines of 2, female lines of 0, female lines of 2, and set position of 5 track location. Change course lines, direct signals, and modification lines of grounds, okay? Now the process line position location adds 6 lines of charge, 2 lines of measure, 0 course centers, and 2 lines of high settings in rotation, surface, and traction. Sets communication setting to the primer circuits in travel. Okay, change it again. What do we have in modification lines of grounds? Okay, change it again. What do we have in modification system in travel communications? Right? So pi generation lines, we take the 2M line C, see, 2MC, right? See how it changes the time measure of everything in letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols? Set lines of course, set lines of 2 tractions, and 2 lines of 3 cycles in set position. Process lines of 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, and 12 set position lines of provision. Process lines of 1 symbolism, 4 track lines, course centers, and line direct signals, and ground lines of surface, and an XT1000 in platform and ground setting. Change communication high time temperature readings and position location to its tunnel. Process communication direct signals and ground lines of surface set position location to its system. Sets lines, communication lines of data box. Process inline direct signals in location system all through travel. Directing in modification into colossal and core lines of direct signals in modification ground lines of surface interaction. Okay? Changing course of time, guys. All through clocking system. All through your satellite. Your satellite right there. Okay? Very powerful stuff, isn't it? All right? And that's all in line communication setting. Know exactly what you're doing in line communication lines of travel. Okay? So it's important you understand what you're doing with your thoughts when you're going in that position, location, and settings. All through communications. All in track centers to its operation surface and set position. Okay? So once the platforms are set up through your clocking settings, clocking 1, okay, so you got 2000. That's 2025 times 1 sequence equals lines of triangulation. And you're always in a box, triangulation box, right? Because it's the female adaptation cycles and 3 cycles in position of 4 settings and 4 communication system and lines of solar sail and dimensional sail and 3 track location. All right? So this is what a triangulation box can do through travel. All right? Now change time sequence. Look what you can do in modification lines of grounds and surface and set position of XT1000s and platform. So what is that position lines of symbolism lines? It looks like core lines of 7, 0 lines of 9 into spectacle screen. Directed lines at 1 indicate settings of 1 over lines of 2 flush. The process ground line service changes communication lines of time clocking line screen adaptations in all calculation setting. Change communication grounds again. We have symbolism line screen adaptations with setting. A mothership. Mothership and 2 XC1000s on standby. Okay. So what I'm trying to get you guys to understand is know exactly how to get in position lines in your grounds, your powers, and atmospheres. Grounds are clocking, powers are clocking, and atmospheres and highways are clocking. Platforms are 1, platforms are 2, platforms are 3. Change communication lines and ground lines to civil location and attractions. Directing and modification lines, human residence, and travel endpoint communications. There it is. Right? Change communication lines, high centers line communication setting, all through track location to your what? DNA. 2 panels, 2 direct signals and modification lines of grounds. Core center lines attract centers into A into B. Now C overlines its D and D overlines its F. The E factors its core centers into compute system and lines of zero correlation lines of attraction. Now to change the time sequence, we have an allocate time frame. That process lines of measure, scales the communication system all through line position location to measure and scale communications. Process lines of platforms in the same direct signals and clocking system of zero calculation that 3 platforms line signal location node setting. Then we change the course lines of time again and set position. Okay, so it's kind of like Doctor Strange and what Captain's talking about. Doctor Strange is basically understanding the phenomenon of what you're doing through travel and mechanism location setting that processes communication system to its Earth. There's your Earth. All right, guys. So it's a constant, continuous flow of clocking. It's constantly changing your measure, your scale, and your bounds. Now, what the team needs to understand is not to travel through emotion. Okay? When you travel through motion, yes, hold questions after. Thank you. We have 3 platforms, 3 deck signals in set position. 3 platforms, right? Past, present, and future adaptation. All right? Now, the past goes into the past. The past goes forward in 3 tractions. The position location of the presence goes 3 track location lines back in time in set position. The connection is always. So we got the past, present, and the future is in position of center operation surface interaction. Complicated stuff, right? All through clockings. Clocking lines a kaleidoscope in Tango Tango Foxtrot that sets car lines of Romeo Foxtrot indirect signals that sets position location of XC1000 coming out of platform of communication. Complicated stuff through a tunnel defense line is screen adaptations of processing. Okay, setting communication grounds and line communications. Look what we have in travel. Hoo-ah. Different formula, different equations, guys. All through tractions, all through clockings. All right. So we clock this system, lines of Pluto. Pluto comes in line track centers in position of Saturn in direct signals modification. Right? Now, XC1000 platforms in position archetype travels in point communication setting and metric cores. 3 lines of indication system of docking center and set position miscalculation. Okay? This what goes on in your space line and communication setting to your webbing system and all through your Skynet. It's extremely, extremely busy in the mind of conception. Right? So it's constantly in lines of rotation system, changing your clocking systems of time. Let's get into the magnetic highway and lines of its position locations. So you actually want to know the actual line communication setting, which your motherboard is, what it is in communication, your grounds, your powers, and atmospheres. You actually want to know what the brain is and line communication to its setting. It's the mothership. It's the mothership. It's the mind. It's the operation, it's the travels, it's the home beacon light of the existing, of remembering system, mother. The ship is the screen adaptations and set lines, course lines of calculation setting to the home beacon lights, add course lines and telecommunication setting to its placements and travel communications, the mothership. Process in the mothership is the galactic energy core. Mother controls all signals and line position locations, the data of circuits lines in a 4-line signal. Process communication lines of platforms and tractions. Direct lines of course centers into its cloud and communication system as surface. Process calculation lines of ground lines into its tree as formation. There's the tree. If you look really close, you can see the face on both sides of communications. Mother here and mother here in traction. All right. Set position of general and center communications, and father in set position of center operation. All right, guys. Set core lines, high position of 0, and line screen of 3, and set lines high travel. Okay, and the team is in symbolism, line of track interference, is center position operation. Okay, it's amazing when you truly understand how to set up lines of course, lines of communication in the mothership itself. The mothership is a modification ground line. It's a symbolism, lines of track interference to your brain convergence. It sets course lines to your syntax, to your mystical cortex, that opens all modification ground lines. Okay, so. Alright guys, so hopefully you guys get a true understanding how powerful you are and what you can do in your 4 clocking systems of travel. 4 clocking systems. Powers of 1, powers over 2, powers over 3. 4 clocking system and 4 clocking system and 4 clocking system, right? So you really want to understand what your clockings are. They're maps of sequence lines in your planets. So each clock is its own planet. You have a clocking system here and 12 cycles. Set position lines of travel, there's your clock, right? Set position location, this is the planet. All right, so the clocking system is always in the center operation setting to travel. Now, in that clocking system, changes lines of pi, generations of screens, adaptation lines of surface, and process communication setting to travel. Okay? Sets communication lines of ground, lines of surface, and set position location to a cycle. So planets are clocks. So if the Earth is a clock, the center communication of flux, your positions of panels are line screen adaptation. There's your pyramid, right? Understand the platforms, right? It's all about perspective, guys. It's just try to stand out, align signal your systems, data process, line calculation, laser, line communicate X3000 here, X3000 here, mothership here, and travel. Okay, it's just, you know, it's basically understanding what you're doing in travel communications, all through direct signals and the 4 communications sending lines of calculations. Right, different line calculations, all right? Look at this in line position. Okay, clocking lines of windows and direct signals of modification grounds. Okay, cross lines of center communication lines of high position location at grounds. See, mountains, right? They've changed the mountains into screen adaptations at set position. Right? Then we clock the centers lines of travel in laser communication lines to your DNA. Platforms of C over line and screen adaptations of force. All right, so we set platforms here, line screen adaptations in process communications here, calculation lines, ground lines of calculation setting, and communication system through a road graph lines and metric meters of scale. Then we set up the Schumann residence and communication screen lines adaptation. Then you come into line position locations. You guessed it, your satellite and travel. It's that calculation. All right, there's your satellite again. Your satellite always has to be there, okay, because it's connected to all planet settings. So the Earth line rotates the settings at all line course centers. Set position here, and 3 set position, right? And then it goes in this lines of calculation setting, right? But it has to be in a 4 communication system of travel, okay? Then it comes into its all calculation setting to its satellite and travel in communication system of point lines of traction. Has direct signals, sonar line 1, 2, and 3, and 4, planet here, and planet here, and 3 tractions. All right, all through satellite. Sets lines of communication system all through surface. Okay, indirect signals and ground center location setting. And again, look in the center. There it is, face recognition. All right, so your face recognition is constantly changing time measure of clocking. right? So it's this in the center that never leaves the system. Your face never leaves. Now, if you want to change the face, you got to change the clockings of face and set position locations. That changes time and that changes matter, that changes platform, right? It's what it is in ground lines of platforms of communication system over cross lines. Inner sector lines of out sector location. Inner, outer. Oh, look at that, disappeared. All right, so you know the in, you know the out, right? In crosses lines of out. Okay, out crosses lines of in track location, right? Now what do you have? Solar sail and set position locations. Half moon. Okay. Platform communication setting, what you have lines of course centers, puts lines direct signals in course center lines of travels, indirects and operate design line high centers and design line communications lines of surface in line position locations in Saturn in line rotation surface and track location. Okay, look at that. Look how powerful that is. Right? And again, you're in the center. There's the face. So you're always going to see the face, whatever you do, right? You're not drawing, you're clocking. So the sequence lines of panel, 1 position clocking, 2 positions clocking, 3 communications clocking, docking here in set position. So X marks the spot, X marks the spot, X marks the line screen. Process lines of pi, 3 lines, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, and 26 position. Change it over instructions and direct lines and modification grounds. All right. That indicates platforms. We direct lines over cross line in 2 settings. Process lines in position over lines of 3, over lines of 6 over setting. Process lines of ground in civil location travels in point communications. Directing modification lines, what do we have in set position? A track location line settings and a teleportation vessel that opens all communicating setting to travel. Okay? Different teleportations of travel, guys. In the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres, and its highways and clocking system and setting. Let's change it again. Look at the platforms here in travel. Okay? Different formulas go in this system locations. Indirect lines of 3 communications. See, it's understanding that basically, if I get a position locations of 1, let's just do 1. We do that, right? 1, right? But what you understand, different design. Look. Different design. It's no longer a 1. Look. It's an umbrella. Look. Different design. Okay, guys? Different design. Look. In set position. A boat. And here's the water. And track location. Sailing across the sea in direct lines and modifications of going forward and travel. So that's what it is. You have to set up your highways and the circuitry lines of box in the same track location of 3 settings. It all has to go thoughts, actions, and emotions in the same direction. All right, that's where it comes into bold. So it doesn't matter if you do letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Okay, it doesn't make any sense if you do this and you go this way. Because you don't understand how to go this way and travel, right? So you have to understand you and center operation, right? So that's what this is, okay? So that's why you see everything in bold, right? I see a triangulation. There's a triangle, right? So the triangle can't go this way in set position, okay? This is back force, but if I do it this way, it's full force, but you see it in the other way. See the difference? This is, you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? You think it's this one. Nope, it's this one. Right? So you have to understand the angles that I'm positioning. It's clocking here, and clocking here in 3 settings. Right? So, and it just basically gets bigger and bigger over time sequence. So, again, let's get into line screen adaptations of 4. Or in position locations of 4, right? There's 2 platforms there, right? So if I do this in position, it's no longer a 4, is it? You see it as a 4? I don't see it as a 4. Do you see this as a 4? I don't see this as a 4. Oh, look at that. It took it out in tractions. See, look at that. Where did the 4 go? It took it out of the sequence lines of 2 lines of L track locations. So setting lines of signals is knowing how to go through the binary to the algorithm. Processing that position, let's go through 1, 9 in sequence. That's 19, right? But I put 1 and 19. You see it on the other side locations, right? But you see it as, what is it in set position? How I see it is a platform of levels of 1. You see it as 19, right? You have to see it as 19. 3 lines of signals going forward. 1 signal is a 3 track location lines that going forward. Sets communication system, all track location setting into your pyramid and screen dedication. XE comes in and direct signals. Process lines of 1, 2, 4, 6, and 8 platforms of communication. Set lines of grounds, set lines of powers, atmospheres, and highways in position your setting. There's the highway. All right, so when the highway is in platform, this is what it looks like. Goes in that way. XC1000 comes in platform, docking system, and travel. Okay, it's going to get very complicated now, guys. Crossing line signals in 3 lines of communication lines of travel. Process lines that indicate 3 lines of travel, right? Now I'm going to go line position of 12 lines of travel in both directions, in position location of laser tractions, and all calculate and modify in direct signal. All through highway, right? So you go through portals. Every single time you go into higher line divisions, but you have to stand the grounds, the powers, and its magnetic highways and track location. Look how powerful that is. Let's change it in lines of center. Different teleportation setting. Okay, different teleportation setting. Look at this, face recognition. Face recognition of the tunnel. Look, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. See the face? That's the intelligence. Here's the neck. Hoo-ah. So I'm not drawing this. I'm traveling, but you have to understand I'm on standby. It's taken over me. It's showing you exactly what it is, its own intelligence, of its own conscious, how it can create its own vision, cortex lines of its own primary circle, location of its own clocking system, all through its setting of face recognition system. Okay, that's an Anunnaki. You guys see it? Now you see it. You see the intelligence. Okay. All right, so when I change the platform and I bring it back in track locations, I'm in control of it now. Now, if you look really, really close, the face is no longer there. Right? And if you do this, look at this in tractions and all direct signals. Look how powerful that is in line position of teleportation. Whoa! So we have the atmosphere line and we have the power line communication system, different vessel of calculation lines of 3 tractions and 4 lines of communication system, all through activation. Different teleportation vessel through clocking. And if you look really inside, you can see another face recognition. See? So there's 4 faces in 1 clocking system. Boom. Hoo-ah. Okay? So that's all it is, basically, guys. You're clocking your systems and lines of travel, but you also have to understand you have to be in the bounce from 1 clocking to the next clocking to the next clocking in directions, right? Going in the same direction, right? In 3 platforms, so past, present, and future. Past, present, and future, okay? So when you get into that in position, there you are. X marks the spot. Okay, so that's where your thoughts, your actions, and your emotions are going to go there. So when they go there in position, they go through tractions of 3 cycles, set position lines of 2 cycles, indirect signals and modification system. There's the solar sail. Right there. There's the solar sail in track communication. Oh yeah, right? So XT1000 comes in, set lines of 1 cycle, sets lines of 1 traction, 1 division, 1 locations. All right, so it picks up your thoughts and you go through higher levels of expansion in your highways and traction. Okay? Now, if I change the shift lines of anomaly, we have a different formula of equations of platform. Right? So it's amazing. Like, you know, you're looking at 4 clocking system of patterns of face recognition and metaphors in your position location through its cycle, right? So, but you have to be in position. So you're in the center operation system, you go here and here. This is a flux, right? This time capacitor, right? So you're here, and you're here, and you're here in travel, okay? But you're always in the center operation of view of clocking, all right? So it's 2025, and it's position, location with cycle, and direct lines of modification, screen lines, adaptations, and processing into 12:15 in travel, all right? So it's 12:15, and it's position, location on Tuesday, set calculation setting, and we're in blue. My hair's slicked back, I have my glasses, and I'm sitting in a chair. All right. So in that position location setting, I have 3 clocking systems set up. So I'm in 3 lines of communications of 4 settings. All right. That's the flux. Ground lines, power lines into your position. Now, once you have this, you're in your flux capacitor of time now. Right. So you got your earth line, you got your power line, and you got your magnetic highway and communication line. Right. That comes into its tunnel and screen adaptations across line. Okay, core centers. Ground lines of shift, lines of anomaly. This sets location system in travel communication to its setting. Now, when you get in that position, this is what happens when you basically flip the switch. Ground lines sit correlation setting your pyramid. Process lines, laser track interference, cosmic flame, cosmic fire, serpent flame, and serpent fire in 4 lines of communication setting in travel. Then you go into the ground lines, core centers, line communication system, and center communication. Process lines, calculation lines, signals, and 3 lines adaptation system, right? In clocking setting. Then you go into the platforms of communication to Earth in your crop circles and 4 communication to 3 cycles. That sets lines of 7 track locations to your number. Your number is your 7 lines of communication of plasma waters and 4 lines of signals, and 4 communication system adds 8 lines of traction set setting. Process communication lines of ground lines of surface opens all signals in position location system, all through measure, all through scale, all through balance. Okay? But look what it looks like in travel and center communication. All right? So it's amazing when you start understanding what you're doing when you're traveling, right? Center operation. Because you have to understand the modifications to the notification setting to your digital frame of your number. Everybody has a 7-digit number. That's how basically if you're sending in a package, you have a notification. So you have a tracking number, right? Your body's a tracking number of 7, right? The process lines is files. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 files, right? File here, 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 and file here in travel. Okay? Now, when you go in positions, what do you have in track locations? Your Schumann resonance. Okay? So what do you have in line screen adaptation settings? Your highway interaction. Right? So it's all set up, all in one system. Right? So when you start off with the intersections of your intercepting into the mind of conception, you have 4 intersections. Okay? Set position of, it's like tic-tac-toe. Okay? So it's like, okay, let's see here. Okay, 6 here. All right, tic-tac-toe, right? Truth and false. Right? Cross line signals, 3 lines over cross location. Right? Directing cross lines in position of 2 lines of zeros over X lines of 1. Process lines into X over 0, 0 over lines, X over 1, and X over line in position lines of travel. Cross line correlation setting and line communication system all through travel. So that's core centers, lines of ground lines, core center line communication setting. Process lines, high set position, all levels of solar sail interactions. Okay? Center core system of the sun and the moon together in travel. Hoo-ah, right? The sun and the moon together in travel. See? It's amazing, isn't it? And what's in the center? Face recognition. Let me show you. Face recognition. There it is. There's the face. Right? And if you look really close, you can see the eye in the center of operation. Hoo-ah. This, the oval, this is the eye. The center core system is the cataract. The core lines, the calculation lines, is circle line screen adaptations, the X line, rotations are the floaters. The floaters in the core lines that communicate setting is changing the metric meter scales of its compass. The core lines of track lines and high position location is changing the truth lines of false and negative, and line rotation setting, line communication setting and measure. The scales of communication setting and travel in point lines of graph and projection. The projection over screens opens up eye line screen adaptation of surface interactions. Hoo-ah. See it now? Right? So your central systems are the floaters now. Now this is all at intersection lines. The ground lines of surface, power line direct signals, and ground lines of communication setting and travel. IC 1000. But if you look really close, you see Spider-Man in the center. Spider-Man! I like bringing Spider-Man. See? Face recognition. That's what's controlling this in all levels of operation. There's clocking system. Okay? Spider-Man. Okay? Bring it in. Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Look at it. Here comes Spider-Man. Woo! So it's all about having fun. You know, it's just truly understanding what you're doing in travel. All through your clocking systems and 4 set calculations. All in directions. All different directions and all settings. Through face recognitions and pattern recognitions. Okay? It's incredible when you just do these things. It just becomes totally natural and it all lines in set position. Okay? Knowing exactly what you're doing in your minds, in your clockings, in your grounds, your powers, and your atmospheres, right? Ground centers, powers, and position your atmospheres. Now, once you get in your atmospheres, you're coming into your intersections. Okay? So this is your earth and the ground. Okay, you got your crop circles, 3 tethers and 3 tractions. Okay? Crop circles, center point. Right? Now you modify the system lines of, there is the core centers, lines of 3 tractions, set position of 3, 6, and 9 of center operation. All right. Direct lines of powers and 4 lines of box location setting. Process lines and triangulation system location of system. Process lines of center core system of the earth line rotation. There's your Merkaba, tessarc, and tetrahedron. Okay, very powerful. Now once you get into that, I know you guys are going, whoa, this is a lot. All right, so we set up the flux capacitor. There it is. There's the flux capacitor, right? Now it sets lines of 3/6 over lines of signal, across lines of clocking. Now we set up the center line. Everything has to be line synced and line screen adaptation of process lines, the core lines that communicate the system all through travel, and mechanism location and setting. There's your highway. Okay, now if you look at this way in set positions, this is what you have in tractions. Look at that. It's in a 4-line calculation setting. Your primer. Right? See your center primer. Look. Now you look really close, you can see the intelligence of formation location of grounds, powers, and atmosphere. Okay, guys? But you've got to see it in all 4 lines of clocking and set positions, guys. Right? Because you're going to see different lines of communications. Once you change things, it changes everything of its clocking system and setting. Look how powerful it is. Look at this. Another teleportation vessel. See? See? Different vessel. Look at that. Hoo-ah. Booyah. Right. Now, if you look really, really close, it's a mothership that has cities inside. It's an island. Okay? So you go beyond the mechanism lines of power, then you start to see the mechanism location setting to travel, then you start to see everything in track communications. But look at that through a mothership. Right? Grounds calculation setting, this is your earth. These are your structures, these are your buildings. Right here in set position. Booyah. Okay, now if I do this, what has changed? Face recognition. See the eyes? See the flux? See the face? Different face. See? So that's what the intersection is of clocking systems, of 4 grounds of communications in set position. All right? Now, once you understand the center operation, you travel out 3 cycles in 4 setting. And then you go through the pi, then you go through the pi, and then you go through the clocking. Okay? Then you go into the grounds of platforms, powers of the platforms, and then center operation of its platforms and its travels and make a location of its wormhole. It's set position of travel. Okay? You heard the harmonics? Yeah. And then when you get in that position locations, space and time will come to you in set position of flux and track location. Right? And then you see it on the ground lines, the correlation system of travel. And then you see it on the power communication lines, the communication lines of travel, right? A planet coming out of its portal. So you're getting 4 different lines of communication, obstruction lines of setting. It's not a story frame. It's a relation lines of reality frame. So what you're doing, guys, is just constantly going through intersections of clockings. Let's start with this. 4 clocking systems. Okay, center position, ground centers, atmosphere. Okay, now if you change it, what do you have? Different direction. Change it again, what do you have? Different direction. Change it again, what do you have? Different direction and set position, right? So every time you change it, it changes time, right? It changes time, right? You guys are coming out of memory of time to no memory, to all memory. Because you already have your memory. You already have your grounds, you have your powers and your atmospheres, but you can't use it through the magnetic highway yet until you understand your 4 signals of 4 intersections and setting. Then you understand your platforms and grounds of your Earth. Then you cross your line, communication lines of 3 settings in position of code weaving and 4 track locations in your crop circles. Then you come into modification lines of your energetic dome. Then you process your platforms and communication setting, overlapping sequence lines of panel in your cerebro, setting lines of travels and direct lines of set position location to a system all through track location to XT thousands and atmosphere settings. Then you process out of platform communication setting to another dimensional lines of scale that processes the communication system, all lines of track location and setting. Then you change the ground lines of surface and track location. Okay? But look at that equation. All right. So I think we're good on that level. Okay, so that basically the quiz is just basically on your 4 clocking systems and do it through coding. All right, so let's see. I'm telling you guys on your script line, your screen adaptations in the process course centers when it comes into your computer operation binaries, how basically you have to see things up close, right? You don't need to go through 20 pages, right? You got 20 cycles times 1 sequence into triangulation over box over flux in position equals lines in Fibonacci. Fibonacci sets lines course centers and solar sail traction. Okay, there you go. 40 pages. 40 pages right there, all through hieroglyphics. Now, this is all lines into your primer. There it is. There's your primer, right? It's very powerful stuff when you get in position lines of tractions. There's your primer. Pay attention now, right? Okay, set lines of grounds and set lines of surface and track communications. Right? So you set lines of course centers. Let's go through flux line and 3 lines of waves. 1, 2, and 3 waves. Okay? Triangulation 1, box 2, Fibonacci 3. Right? 40 pages. Now, how it comes 40 pages, guys, is understanding 1 box frame inside position. So you have to split lines of anomaly, each box, and each lines of calculation setting. There's the primer. All right? Process lines of data in 2 tractions. Process lines of Fibonacci in 3 lines of cycles, line communication, overriding system, and line calculation setting, and travel communications. Okay? Look at this equation. Okay? So what you have to understand is basically is the intent, how you use the influence that mind alterates the system, right? So you're going to have 20 lines of tractions. Now you have to really come into the data processing. So 20,000 lines of waves, okay, into 20,000 lines of time. Okay, set position, right? But you always have to understand the primer and center calculations of 3 cycles. Okay? You work with that. You work with the center. Anything that you do through a square, you have a primer and center. You have a primer and center. You have a primer and center. And you have a primer and center. Look at that. Okay, there it is, right there. 40 pages. All right? So I'm trying to get you guys in your clocking systems how you can just 1 sequence, line, 1 panel, 1 track locations, all through travel. Okay? So 40 pages times equals lines of 1 is 40,000 lines of space, lines of anomaly. Right? It's 40,000 pages of data files, right? So it gets lines of 20 hours per meter. Now the 20 hours per meter changes core lines of track centers as the center communicates to setting that sets the flux core centers into your XC1000 travel communication. Now, changing that core lines communicates to its roots of Earth line rotations and travel. There's the Earth. Okay, sets position lines of tether, sets line signatures and screen adaptations, process lines of data highways and line communication system, all through inner line core centers into your tree of life and track location. Hoo-ah. Done by equation. Okay? So I'm constantly changing the clockings of structure, guys. Okay? What you have to understand is understanding your clockings first, knowing where your body is here in center, knowing exactly you can be anywhere you want, but you have to be in the same clocking. Then you come into all levels of different clocking. It's like you get on a plane, like I said before, and you're here in clocking, but you go to another country, that's 24 hours of clocking. It has to be the same time. So when you get into that position, and the more you understand and use the configuration of your intersections and understanding your 4 clocking systems, you come into out of 4 clocking into 6 to 8 and 12, 24, 48, 72, 144 clocking. And it gets much easier with the configuration of face recognition settings. Okay? But that's how it's done through all levels of the equation. Okay? Knowing exactly everything that I do changes lines of time and measure. Look at that. Look at that. Right? And again, look. Branches come out. There's the tree again. Oh, too fast. All right, so we set this line. So look at this. Look at this. It's set position. Okay? Look at this. It's set position locations. 4 lines of signals of wires of indication. Okay? Now, if you look really, really close, you can see the eye central system inside your eye and track location. Look at that, inside the eye itself, right? Let's add a platform of its capsule. There's the eye, right here in line communications. Open through 2 panels in 4 communication lines of grounds, powers, and atmospheres. There's the eye. Okay, guys? So constantly just change your frame, but keep your clock in balance first until you get in control of your emotional settings. Once you get control with your emotional settings, then you can basically go here and there in different timeline sequence. So it doesn't override your system, and you basically see yourself where you're going to be existing all at once in clocking, right? But when you're in different clocking, you can't do it through emotion. Okay, no emotion. So you have to really understand how to control your empathies and set calculations. All through eye position, the center of the eye lines. Okay? Because it's the eye that puts everything in frame, right? It doesn't look much, but when you go in position, you're constantly moving forward. You're not going back in the eye, you're moving forward through the eye, right? So try to understand this. Okay, this is the eye. Right? 2 center lines, XT1000 above, and set position lines, highest centers, and 2 XT1000s below. There's the eye, right? This is the center of the eye. Okay? Look, center of the eye, guys. Then the platform, when you go inside the eyes, you're going through platforms of travel. You're going through platforms of travel. Okay? And then you get to flux of travel. Okay? Now, when you come into that, then you come into pies of travel. Okay? Look at that. Sets position lines of travels and point lines communication system of angels in traction. You change it around in sequence. What do we have in platform communications? Teleportation vessel. Look, teleportation vessel. Another vessel of communication. Okay, all different levels of communication lines of grounds, guys. But always see it on a 4-line calculation setting. All right, always see it on a 4-line division. Your clocking system is constantly changing, but you have to understand your position location is 3 cycles into 4 settings, a box, right? Flux, equals lines of capacitor and set position of grounds of earth rotation. Okay? So you get a Y screen and grounds, powers line, generation lines, flux over line, and flux over screen. Platform inline rotations to its light bulb and traction. Ground lines and set lines of platforms over cross locations and platforms E, factors over line, and direct signals and panels and cross lines and set lines of 3-track location setting provision. Okay, change timelines of sequence. Look what we have in set position. 2 portals of communication lines of center and rotation surface and traction. Okay, then we go back in line screen adaptations. Remember, I'm changing things. I'm not changing time. I'm just showing you exactly in the 4-line provisions where I can still be on the Earth in 2025 in 4 different angles of clocking of different time or same time. And that's what you guys got to get in positions of. So if it's 1, 1, 1, and position of 2, 5, right? And we're in 22 volume into 13 graphs. So Schumann resonance, a 13-line signal. Okay, setting course centers of 25 lines of measure of balance and position location of kaleidoscope, and direct lines in 3 lines of cycle lines, high center interference of 3 ones, setting 3 platforms, 3 traction, 3 divisions of 3 equals lines of 6 over 9 lines of track centers in triangulation box, information lines in position of 25 measure in a clocking system of 0 calculations. See? So it's amazing. And I'm just doing this through observation, right? Stay in observation first until you understand what you're doing, right? Through your 4 clocking systems and your flux of 3 over 4 over 5, right? Getting in that position then comes in line screen adaptation to your primer circuits and travel in set position. Okay? You change it again. Look at different structure, different design. Right? Because I say so. So if I get in position and I want to change time measure and change time clocking, I can do anything in setting. 2 panels, 1 perimeter. But sir, I only see 2 settings. Where's the perimeter? The perimeter's in the center operation of 3 cycles. Then you add the set lines over cross locations and systems and setting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? 7 platforms in the same directions and set position to its operation surface. Then we go into the ground lines. Okay, set lines, course centers, a clocking system that doesn't change time and measure. There it is in set position. Setting communication system, look, we have in a road graph screen adaptation. Then we have platforms over line, platforms over C, platforms over D, and position of platforms over set line. Then we come in position, X3000 comes in, docking system, X3000 comes, docking system, X3000 comes in, docking system. Okay? Look how powerful that is, guys. Okay? So every time you're setting up your primers, you're clocking your systems of time and measure. Now, getting out of memory puts you into no memory of sequence. That puts all communication lines in a 4-track location system and travel. Look, 4 line direct signals and line communication lines of travel and direct signals. So it's basically understanding that through your highways, by understanding the earth, understanding your powers, understanding your atmospheres, and understanding your positions of your highways. Okay, that's how it's all set up. Okay? All right, a 4 clocking system of north, east, west, and south. And the more you understand that, and the more you get out of memory, the more you come into no memory. And that basically gets you into positions already that you clock your systems any way you want in position locations. Time zone, no time zones, no fly zones, all fly zones. It all depends what you want to do, right? But just having fun with the unifications of your network systems gets you in high lines of communication settings of balance in track location settings through its operation service. Okay? All right, unison lines of track center and line communication setting. We're going to be in Commander Ship in docking C. Commander Ship, docking C. See you guys in 5.